What is good, everybody? Man, it's your boy Jay in the building. Is back again with another video. Now, before we get this video started, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys share this video. Okay, so I absolutely found it fascinating the amount of backup quarterbacks that actually played this season, especially like just in the SWAC alone. And I kind of want to go through that because, mind you, it made the teams look a lot different than it actually appears. And there was really only 4 teams in the SWAC that actually had quarterback stability, whether the quarterback was fully healthy the entire season and played damn near all the games. Got Christian Peters at Pine Bluff, Jalen Tolbert at Alcorn, R.J. Johnson at FAMU, which, by the way, R.J. actually led the SWAC in passing yards, and KJ Cooper at Texas Southern. But outside of those 4 teams and those 4 quarterbacks, there was a lot of moving parts at the quarterback position. Even the 2 teams that that are about to play in the SWAC championship game. So I'll go through down the list, man. First team, Alabama A&M. Of course, Cornelius Brown, he starts the season off, and the offense, they actually look pretty damn good. Of course, he gets hurt during the Tennessee State game. Eric Henley ends up finishing the game off. Then Eric Henley gets his first start versus Bethune-Cookman, which, by the way, he had over 350 yards and I think, 3 touchdowns. Then they won the game, I think. I don't know if they won the game or not. I'm not sure. But then, of course, starts a few more games, and I think Cornelius Brown ends up starting against Jackson State. And I think he ends up getting hurt in that game, too. And then Eric Henley starts the rest of the season. And then, of course, J.D. Davis ends up starting, the last 2 or 3 games, maybe. I'm not sure. But they had about 3 quarterbacks start this season. Then Grambling State got it the worst. So, of course, I think T-Set's, of course, QB1. I think T-Set first gets injured, I think, toward the end of the Prairie View A&M game. I think around that time, he might have got hurt at that game. I'm not sure. Because against Texas Southern, he wasn't dressed at all. And mind you, he was in street clothes on the sideline. So Ashton Fry ends up starting for Grambling State that game. This is a homecoming game. So he actually ain't playing too bad. I think he ends up getting hurt in the middle of the third quarter. So they have a freshman quarterback, I think Darrensburg. Darrensburg comes in, and now he finishes the game. Well, he don't finish the game. So I think they were running the ball a lot with him at quarterback in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, he threw 1 interception. And dog, I don't know if y'all watched the game, but that throw was so bad. T-Set, mind y'all, T-Set is in street clothes. The coach made T-Set, or I think T-Set said, "Yo, I can play." T-Set went to the locker room and got changed and keep in mind again, T-Set was in street clothes, got dressed and got warmed up and played in the football game. Finished it out. Mind you, he only got to play in their last drive. And keep in mind, I think they're down by 1 point at the time. They're down by 1 point. So T-Set on their last drive, he drives Grambling State to the 4-yard line, and they end up fumbling. So then Texas Southern picks it up, and they close out the rest of the game. I think it was probably like 4 or 5 minutes or whatever. So, dog, T-Set damn near won the game being hurt. So I think the Las Vegas Classic happens. So then, of course, T-Set plays in that game. And, of course, he ends up getting hurt in that game as well. Got knocked out in the fourth quarter. So then Darrensburg, the guy who got changed, who just played, who threw that horrible interception against Texas Southern, he ends up finishing the game against Jackson State. He ends up actually making plays on the field, get him close enough to kick the game-winning field goal. So then the next game, he ends up starting his first game versus Alabama A&M, and he ends up getting hurt. So then here comes the fourth-string quarterback, Hayden Benoit. And Hayden finished that game. They end up winning the game. So then he starts the rest of the season. And of course, he starts his first game against Bethune-Cookman, ends up throwing 4 touchdowns and winning the game, which is absolutely crazy. Then, let me see, Alabama State. Y'all know how good Andrew Body was playing. He won SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. So he ends up getting hurt the second quarter of the Prairie View A&M game. So then Tashawn Smoot comes in. He finishes the game, and he ends up winning that game. And not only that, he won the rest of the games. I think that season he finished 1,176 yards with 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. Oh, and going back to Eric Henley had over 1,300 passing yards, which is like top 7 in the conference, with 8 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So, which is crazy. And then Southern. Now, I know how bad Southern looked this entire season, and we all seen how bad the quarterback play was between Cameron McCoy and Ashton Strahler for damn near most of the season. But from what I've learned, especially after the first game of the season, Jalen Woods was supposed to be the starter for Southern. And I absolutely learned that after the first game, because at the beginning of the year, I said, yeah, damn, Cameron McCoy should be starting. And I saw how he looked. And so Jalen Woods came in on their last drive for the fourth quarter. And that was the only drive I needed to see to convince me, Jalen Woods should be the starter. The way he looked on that last drive, if it wasn't for a holding penalty on that drive to push them back, they may have scored on that drive. But, of course, Jalen Woods got disciplined or whatever, which is why he didn't start in that game. So I said, okay, fair enough. So then he gets to start versus Valley State. And then he ends up getting knocked out in the second quarter, but they're moving the ball. And then, of course, it's all Cameron McCoy and Ashton Strahler. The rest is history. But the offense looked completely different with Jalen Woods in the lineup. And if it wasn't for him getting injured, like a season-ending injury, who knows how this offense would have looked the entire season. I think this team would have looked completely different. But, of course, Cameron McCoy played during the majority of the games this season, finished with 597 yards with 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And then Strahler, mind you, he had less than 100 completions, and he finished top 10 in passing in the conference. I think he had a little over 1,000 yards with 3 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So even though Southern's offense looked unwatchable the majority of the season, of course they had a running game with Trey Holly, but Jalen Woods throwing the ball just looked completely different in the small amount of time that I seen him, which would have made a big difference for Southern. Now, Bethune-Cookman. Now, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Timmy McClain started the first 3 games of the season for this team. Of course, their first 2 games was against 2 FBS teams, and then, of course, South Carolina State. Now, they're getting beat 24-0 in the first quarter, and so now Cameron Ransom ends up stepping in against South Carolina State, and he ends up scoring 41 points in the last 3 quarters, and now he's starting for the majority of the season. But then when Ransom struggled against Alabama State, Timmy McClain stepped in. When he struggled in the first 2 drives against Grambling State, Timmy McClain stepped in. And then how ironic, the guy who started the season ends up closing out the season for Bethune-Cookman, and ends up winning the MVP of the Florida Classic. I think Cameron Ransom threw for 1,700 yards and 1,743 yards with 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And then Timmy McClain ends up throwing for 1,100 yards, 1,131 yards with 7 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now, of course, Valley State, Josh Brown and Brandon Nunez damn near split time. Damn near, numbers is damn near identical. Josh Brown, of course, had a season-ending injury. I think he had a dislocated finger or something wrong with his finger. He ends up getting knocked out versus Jackson State. And then, of course, Brandon Nunez probably had his best game of the season versus FAMU. I think Josh Brown ends up throwing for 1,066 yards with 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And Nunez with 865 yards with 4 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. That's rough. And then for the two teams that's playing in the SWAC championship game, of course, Morgan starts the season. He's preseason SWAC Offensive Player of the Year, ends up getting hurt versus Grambling State. And instead of Lockhart coming in first, it's actually Parker Stouffer coming in for Morgan. And, of course, I think I talked about this in the last video I did before, but Stouffer is in there, only mustered up 3 points in the 2.5 quarters he was in. And so Lockhart comes in, scores 2 late touchdowns to give them the lead, and then now he ends up starting the rest of the games. So now they're on a four-game winning streak with him at quarterback. And then, of course, we got Prairie View A&M. Of course, Cam Peters starts the season off with over 300 yards passing. Second game, he's struggling. So then Tevin Carter comes in, brings him back, and only loses by 5 or 6. So then he ends up starting the next 4 games against Rice, Grambling, Northwestern, and then Alcorn. And Tevin Carter is struggling versus Alcorn. So then Cam Peters comes in, they win the game, and now he's starting the rest of the games. And we will be seeing Cam Peters play in the SWAC championship game. Now, who's going to start for Jackson State? We don't know. But this year has definitely been the year of the backup quarterback. And we all know how important the quarterback position is. And I'll just say to y'all, man, like, listen, y'all have to, I don't know what y'all doing in the offseason, but it's always important, man, just stay healthy and to work on your craft, man, because you don't know when your time going to come. And there's been a lot of, listen, of course, we have the transfer portal. Each and every year, you're going to have different quarterbacks, which I think Cornelius is coming back for, I think, his 6th or 7th season. I don't know how that even happens. Of course, Lockhart is probably going to be the quarterback for next year, more than likely. I think Cam Peters and Tevin Carter is going to be gone after this season. So who knows who the quarterback is going to be for Prairie View next season. Grambling State, who knows. But there's a lot of questions that's going to be answered to see who's going to be the quarterback of a lot of these teams. But I do believe that I think Andrew Body says that I think he coming back next season. So if he does come back, does that make Alabama State the early favorites in the SWAC for next year? Who knows, man? But I actually just did it because I just thought that, that the quarterback turnover was just fascinating this year, and I just never really seen anything like this to where you got so many different quarterbacks play this in one conference this year. But listen, man, I appreciate y'all for listening, and I'll be here tomorrow, man. Holla at y'all.